Welcome to In the Zone. I'm your host, Elizabeth Wicht. With lots of new NFL headlines, shocking college football upsets, and the solidification of the World Series, there's a lot to talk about. We'll get right to the action. In the Zone starts now. The stage is officially set for the World Series, and baseball's two premier teams, the Yankees and Dodgers, will meet each other in the Fall Classic. LA fought hard against the Mets, getting big performances from stars Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, and NLCS MVP Tommy Edman. Meanwhile, the Yankees made quick work of the Guardians, thanks to the ALCS MVP Giancarlo Stanton, Anthony Volpe, and Carlos Rodon. Zach, what did you think about the championship series, and who impressed you the most?
It's difficult to say who. Of course, Tommy Edman did have a great run. But like I mentioned last time I was on here, that pitching staff entirely deserves a whole round of applause, a bouquet of flowers, and probably their favorite pieces of candy.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, from top to bottom, they knew exactly what they were doing. They stopped the Mets' bats. Going up against the hottest team in the league, it's difficult to be able to go, especially on the road, and come out with victories. They were able to take that right on the chin and be able to put up 10 9 runs a game. So that is just difficult when you just can't seem to get the bats going. The pitching, round of applause.
Absolutely. Bailey, what are your thoughts?
You know, I really thought that Juan Soto really was able to step up for the team. You know, him just being traded in December, we really didn't know how he was going to be able to perform under pressure in these big games. But, you know, in that 10th inning, he had the 3-run homer with 2 outs. I was really just impressed by him overall. And then obviously Juan Carlos Stanton, MVP for the ALCS, you know, big deal. He had 4 hits in the series. All of them were home runs. 7th year with the Yankees, you know, he really came back after some tough injuries. And I really feel like he also put up a really good performance as well.
Do you think anybody's carrying the team, or is it just all around?
Well, it's certainly not Aaron Judge, okay? So, yeah, you know, at this point, I mean, it sucks to say, but the Guardians really did not have a chance going up against a Yankees team like that. And I think that's something the whole entire baseball world can, you know, be able to understand. That's why we were kind of hoping for that Subway Series, because now we just have 2 of the best teams in the league, like standing-wise, which is still going to be really good. Aaron Judge, if he decides to wake up against Shohei, we're having Giancarlo against Mookie Betts. It's going to be exhilarating. I can't wait for it.
I pretty much completely agree. I think that Judge in particular, he really needs to kind of step up his game. You know, being captain for the Yankees, you would think he'd be performing a little bit more, but I definitely think that his time is really to shine. I really think that this is it for him. I think he's really about to make a big move.
Yep.
So the World Series this year will feature the top 2 teams in baseball, the Yankees and the Dodgers, making for an intriguing matchup. Plenty of baseball's brightest stars will be in the center stage, including likely MVPs of both leagues, Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge. Bailey, who are you expecting to have a big performance in the Fall Classic, and who do you think is winning it all this October, and why is it the Yankees?
Well, of course, I'm gonna go the Yankees on that one. Now, we kind of just talked about Aaron Judge, but I really think that if he's able to put it together, he really could come out MVP. You know, he is not doing very ideal right now with 5-31 with 13 strikeouts. Not ideal. But he has walked 7 times, and he's had 2 home runs. I think if he's able to kind of bring it together and make a little bit better contact on the ball, I really think that he could be up there for MVP. You know, overall, I do think that the Yankees put a lot of stress on the opposing pitchers, which I definitely think is going to really help them in the future. I think that they start off really strong with Gleyber Torres reaching first in 8 out of the 9 playoff games. And Juan Soto, you know, he's just really been hitting very well. They've been leading to a lot of walks, which really, in the long term, has led to the home runs making a lot bigger of a difference. Instead of just being a 1-run home run, it's now turning into a 2- or 3-run home run. And honestly, it's creating a lot more success for the Yankees right now.
We saw that in the game where they made it into the World Series. Now, Zach, I saw your reaction to that. Are you not for the Yankees? What's happening here?
Are you kidding me? The Yankees had a cakewalk to get to the World Series. They played the Royals, who, wow, they have Bobby Witt Jr., great player, nobody else. Okay, then you've got the Guardians, who, as we all know, like we just talked about, everybody knew the Guardians had no chance. The American League just completely fell apart. The Orioles, it is what it is. They just can't make it through October. It is what it is. The Dodgers had to go through the Padres, who were shaping up to be really good this postseason, and they ended up going to the length of that series. And then you've got the hottest team in the league, and they were able to shut them down. This Dodgers team is going to go in there and end up winning in 6 games. It is what it is. They're going to be able to pull out a few wins in New York. And I just think that the Dodgers, the whole lineup, if they're on, they're on. And there's no team in the league that can be able to beat them.
All right, Bailey, what do you think about that?
You know, I definitely think that they are going to be able to put up a good fight, but I still think that the way that the Yankees are able to put stress on the opposing pitchers is going to throw them for a loop, and I think that it's something that they haven't experienced before.
No, I think you're completely underestimating this pitching staff that's in LA. I mean, Yamamoto is they're not playing game 1. Yes, you're putting on your ace in game 1. I can definitely see the Yankees coming out on top in game 1. Watch a 3 straight Dodgers series. They're going to take it over.
In the college football world, the SEC had a busy weekend consisting of the most anticipated games of the week, beginning with Alabama taking on Tennessee, where the Crimson Tide unfortunately couldn't handle the Volunteer crowd and fell to 5-2 on the year, as well as a Saturday primetime top 5 matchup with the Georgia Bulldogs traveling to Austin, where they took down the #1 Texas Longhorns. Bailey, are there any concerns you have with the Tide or the Longhorns?
Now, I cannot really say I'm surprised by Alabama losing. Honestly, it was not a big surprise to me. You know, I kind of thought it was going to be a little bit closer, but you know what? That's okay. I do think that the Tennessee offense wasn't anything special, but the fact that Alabama only had 89 rushing yards, they really are just a second half struggle team, and I really think that really showed against the Longhorns. Against Tennessee. And overall, Tennessee did trail 7-0 at halftime, and yet they still came back and were able, because of how bad Alabama struggled in the second half, to come out with the win 17-24. I can't really say I'm surprised, but Alabama has just struggled, and I think that's a big point in how they've played.
Mm-hmm. And then coming off of losing against Vanderbilt and now Tennessee, what do you think?
I think Alabama needs to figure it out. There's
I
something
agree.
going
Yep.
on down there in the South. There's something in the water, and the good stuff is not in Alabama, I'll tell you that. So it's like you said, they lost to Vanderbilt, which could have been the hiccup. Then you struggle against South Carolina, barely pull out a win. And I will say, going into Tennessee, that's difficult for any team. It doesn't matter who you are. Going into Tennessee, it's going to be a tough battle. But like you mentioned, you got to run the ball. You got to be able to take control of the ground. That way you have that air attack ability. They just couldn't do it. They just couldn't handle that whole entire Tennessee defense. It was a struggle for them. It really was. And they just need to be able to figure this out, because now they're going to be able to take on Mizzou. And Mizzou, they also kind of have been struggling as well. But hey, it's still a top 25 team. You can't be able to knock them out. Or, as what we learned, if they're an SEC team, you can never count them out. You know?
Well,
I
think we're on the upswing now. I feel like it's a wake-up call.
Upswing?
You're crazy.
It's
going to happen.
Yeah, no.
A team that is on the upswing, what we mentioned, those Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah.
You know,
Agreed.
I will personally say I did not see this coming.
No.
Georgia was able to shut me up, and I mean, it's the same thing that we brought up. Texas just has to learn to run the ball, and once they figure that out, they're still a top 5 team. But you know, Georgia, I stand corrected.
Yeah. All right. Well, after the action this past week, Oregon now sits atop the leaderboard in the #1 spot. There has been more movement through the middle of the rankings, and believe it or not, the Vanderbilt Commodores are ranked in football. Never thought I'd see it. Looking ahead to the upcoming week, Alabama and Texas look to bounce back, with number 21 Missouri traveling to Tuscaloosa and Texas going to Nashville to face Vanderbilt, and other top 25 matchups throughout the states. Zach, what do you make of the latest rankings?
I'd say that when it comes to the rankings, I mean, there's not much you can do. I totally understand the whole Texas and Georgia flip, the way Georgia seemed to take over. They're definitely not #1. Oregon has been playing some really good football. I'm like you mentioned too, Vanderbilt top 25, and we're not even talking about baseball. This is football that we're talking about. And we were just talking about last week, Army and Navy were top. what is going on in the college football world? I don't even know how to react. I'm really enjoying it. You know, Bama did falling down to 15, which it is what it is. I just would have loved to see Clemson or LSU also begin to move up as well, because LSU has been playing some really good football, and I'm glad Clemson was able to jump over Iowa State, because Clemson has also been playing some really dangerous football. Once they get into the playoffs, they're an underdog no matter where they go, but I would not be surprised if they pull off a playoff upset.
Yeah, and there's several surprises. What did you think was the most surprising?
Honestly, I was not surprised by Oregon, going to number 1. I really was not surprised they came up with that really, really great win against Ohio State at home and then going to Purdue. I honestly just was not surprised by them being number 1. Again, Texas dropping as much as they did, obviously we didn't know how that game was going to go. That was really big. And also, with the Texas fans throwing water bottles and other trash onto the field to get the pass interference taken away. I'm sorry? I think that that's absurd. And so I think that entire game was just insane to watch in general, that ended up leading to Texas' downfall. Mm-hmm. So seeing them drop down was definitely a surprise for me, but at the same time, I think it was almost deserving in the moment.
Do you think it sets a precedent now for how referees react?
I'd say it's a little difficult when you have college kids like that who probably don't even remember the second half of the game, and they were just throwing all their water bottles out there. God knows if they were even water in the first place.
True.
So when it comes to that, I would say it's pretty difficult. But you were talking about an upswing. Texas is definitely going to bounce back. This is just their first. This is their first fall off, I guess. They're going to bounce back. Alabama, I see coming out with a victory. Missouri's going to Alabama. That's going to shake some things up. And we were looking at the bottom top 25. My lock of the week is SMU is going into Duke. They're not coming out victorious. Duke Blue Devils over SMU this week.
Interesting.
Okay, interesting.
All right, interesting take. Well, now we'll send it over to Christa Ricks for the latest in Marauder athletics. Christa?
Thank you, Elizabeth. Here at In the Zone, we want to give a recognition and big congratulations to women's volleyball senior captain Emma Ludwig, who established a new all-time mark for most assists in career. She hit a record assist number of 3,581 during the second set against Kutztown, surpassing Missy Rauterhauser, who holds a nearly 3-decade-old record of 3,580 set in November back in 1994. And with that, Ludwig has been named your PSAC East Volleyball Athlete of the Week. After a promising start to the PSAC Championship, Millersville's men's golf slipped down the leaderboard on Saturday and Sunday and settled for third place finish. Timothy Peters, your 2023 champ, stayed steady and placed third in the individual leaderboard. Millersville's finished third in all 6 fall events. The championship closed the fall season and the Marauders return to action in March. A faulty clearance by the Marauders backline caused women's soccer to settle for a 1-1 draw against Bloomsburg. In the PSAC East standings, women's soccer is ranked 4th place and right behind them is Bloomsburg in 5th. Soccer ends in a away game stretch as they kick off against Shepherd at home tonight at 6 p.m. Women's swimming team swam its first duel of the season with a test against Division I St. Francis Saturday. The Marauders posted 8 PSAC championship qualifying times. The swim team makes its home debut on Saturday, November 2nd against East Stroudsburg. Now let's send it back over to Elizabeth and the crew to talk about a potential NFC championship preview. Elizabeth?
Thanks, Christa. This past Sunday in the NFL, we witnessed a thriller in Minneapolis with 2 of the hottest teams in the NFC facing off. The Vikings hosted the Detroit Lions in what shaped up to be a classic. The stars were shining and offenses were clicking as this game came down to a last-minute field goal by the Lions to take the lead and secure the victory on the road. Bailey, was this an early preview of the NFC Championship?
You know, I think it would be a very interesting NFC Championship if it became the Lions and the Vikings, I'm not going to lie. The Lions were just playing so well. And honestly, I was kind of surprised to see that the Vikings took their first loss to Lions. But again, the Lions are now the division leaders for the first time in 30 years. 30 years! First time for Lions. That's a big thing. I will say with Jake Bates kicking that 44-yard field goal with 15 seconds left in the game to win, that was very exciting football. I loved watching it personally. I think that Darnold to Jefferson they had two really kind of larger misfires that I think led to the downfall of the Vikings in that game. And they even acknowledged it after the game. They made a statement. They were like, yep, we didn't play the best football today. But I think that in the end, if they can get their act together and then the Lions can get even better, I think that the NFC Championship would be very interesting between the Lions and the Vikings.
What do you think about it?
I think the Lions just proved to themselves and to the entire nation that they are a team to be worried about in the NFC.
Yeah.
I mean, the NFC North is strong as is. When your worst team are the Chicago Bears, shocker, at 4-2. I mean, that just shows how strong of a division that is. So anytime an NFC North opponent's going to play each other this year, you better grab your popcorn buckets because it's going to be a good one. And we just saw a preview of this today. I think that it might be a little too early to say NFC Championship preview. I'd say that the Lions would definitely be a good lock for it. The Minnesota Vikings, after how they seem to struggle with the Detroit air attack, I just say that's something that you got to be able to touch up on before another team like Jordan Love and the Packers, or you can't forget about the Commanders if they can stay healthy. If we're still battling these injuries, we're going to be able to see this game in January.
And speaking of injuries, so far this season, we've noticed a lot of superstar names gone out, but this week especially from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This past Monday night, the Bucs battled against the Ravens, resulting in a loss in more ways than one. Tampa Bay's star wide receivers Mike Evans and Chris Godwin couldn't complete the game, both leaving with injuries. Evans appeared to leave with hamstring issues arising from the week prior, and Chris Godwin was carted off the field with 43 seconds left in the game. With Godwin potentially being out for the year with an ankle injury, this has started to bring up questions as to why he was out on the field during that drive. Zach, why do you think Coach Todd Bowles left Godwin on the field? And will these injuries affect the Bucs going forward?
It's first off it's really big. I mean, the Buccaneers, they have a great defense, but that they were playing fantastic on both sides of the ball. I mean, it's difficult to be able to guard Mike Evans and then have to worry about Chris Godwin on the other side and vice versa. So now when you lose both of them at the same time, then you begin to wonder, how's this offense going to go? They have some pretty deadly running backs in the backfield, but they're not going to be able to pick up the slack that Mike Evans and Chris Godwin had, as well as the fear and the worry of them being out there completing these passes and changing the game as is. So I'd say that this is huge. This changes everything. And next week is going to be a must-watch for Tampa Bay, as well as just NFL fans, to see where they're going. Where Todd Bowles is going, he should not be on that sideline anymore. I mean, what are we doing? We're talking about possibly the best team in the league, the Baltimore Ravens. And I'm not even just trying to hype them up. It is what it is. They played really good football. I mean, it's when you put up 41 points and then you just kind of go to run out the clock. It is what it is. But I guess to him, he saw hope in coming back, which it's not going to happen. So, and I guess they were just trying to force it to him, and it is what it is. I also did see that Roquan Smith is getting looked at to see if that was a hip drop tackle. That tackle is being investigated. So we even have more news to come.
Bailey, do you think it significantly impacted it, or should he have been left out of the game?
Honestly, personally, I would not have made the move to keep him in the game. I think that was kind of a dumb move. You're just asking for trouble at that point. But at the same time, there was statements and discussions of this topic put out recently, and there pretty much was statements saying that he's a player. They knew it was a very tiny chance, but they thought that they did have a chance to then come back and at least make it really, really close. And I respect that, but at the same time, why are you risking some of your best players going out there in that time when the chances are so slim at there being success? I would not have made the decision. I'm definitely in agreement with Zach on that concept. Wasn't the smartest decision on their part, but at the same time, the ankle dislocation, it has a really big chance at ending his season, and in turn could really change how the team has to function going forward, and it could lead to some major fails for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward for them. Do you have any other thoughts on that?
I mean, just to add more salt on the wound, I mean, the only reason the Bucs were still in the game is because they recovered the onside kick earlier. So I guess that gave him that extra chance of, we might be able to come back. I just, once again, don't see a point in having Godwin in, especially after Mike Evans There was one touchdown where he seemed to walk off pretty poorly. And then there was the play prior to that where he was showing that he was limping. So there were early signs. It's just now we're just waiting MRI ratings, I guess, for him to see how soon. There's reports saying that he could be out all season. So that's no good for this Bucs offense.
Yeah, and it can change how their coaching is going in the forward. So that'll do it for this episode of In the Zone. From Bailey Toporcer, Zach Humphreys, Christa Ricks, and the entire In the Zone crew, I'm your host, Elizabeth Wicht. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again next time, right here on In the Zone.